Hey everybody, and welcome to the second promised review that I gave towards the beginning of my review of Invincible Season 1. Here is my review of the new Mortal Kombat movie. Now, a little bit of background before I talk about my actual thoughts on the movie. I've always been a big fan of Mortal Kombat. In fact, I've actually been more a Mortal Kombat fan than I have been of Street Fighter. Nothing against Street Fighter or Capcom or anything like that. I mean, as you can clearly see in the background, I'm a big fan of video games. Of course, Street Fighter is no exception, but in terms of me being familiar with the characters, their backstories, the lore, the fighting moves, and other things like that, I've always been more of a Mortal Kombat guy, to be honest. Don't know what that really says about me, but you can make your own assumptions in the comments down below. But anyways, so when it comes to video game adaptations, a lot of video games have particularly struggled in getting adapted from console to screen. So, and I probably should give you a little bit of in addition to my background on Mortal Kombat, I should probably give you the background on the Mortal Kombat movies themselves. First of all, thoughts on the 95 movie. It's an entertaining B-movie with nothing too substantial. It was really one of the first video game movies at the time that actually felt and looked like the game. It had most of the characters, it had a lot of the moves. It didn't have the gore as it was rated PG-13, but at the time, it made sense because the target demographic for Mortal Kombat were the kids that were playing it in the arcade. If they made it rated R, then they wouldn't be allowed to see it. They would essentially be blocking out their biggest demographic. Plus, video game movies were still a relatively new thing, and they wanted to get in as many people as possible to see it. And it was a big hit. Then 2 years later, 1997, we got Mortal Kombat Annihilation, which, despite having a bigger budget than the first Mortal Kombat, still somehow looked cheaper and worse than the first Mortal Kombat did. And for a while, it essentially killed off the film franchise of Mortal Kombat for a while. They still maintained some form of popularity via their games, but for the most part, in terms of films, they were kind of dead. Then, around last year, we got a direct-to-video animated movie entitled Mortal Kombat Legends Scorpion's Revenge, which was sort of what DC... You see, Warner Brothers has a habit of making direct-to-video DC animated movies, with that being the first instance of them experimenting the waters with another one of the franchises that they own, that being Mortal Kombat. And it was actually really good, as it did a really good job telling the story of the original Mortal Kombat, while also having a primary focus on Scorpion and his backstory and whatnot. And it definitely was a Mortal Kombat movie. It was a really entertaining one too. So, I was very much excited for this movie for a lot of reasons. One, because it legitimately seemed that the people involved in the production, from the director Simon McQuoid, who is making his directorial debut with this film, to Greg Russo, who helped to pen the screenplay. This is his first ever major credited screenplay that he's ever done, so that's really cool. And he very much seemed like the fact that he was a big fan of Mortal Kombat 2, so obviously, of course, he's treating it as delicately as possible. And the cast that they all got for this is absolutely fantastic. I mean, you got Louis Tan, you got Josh Lawson, Jessica McNamee, Mechad Brooks, Ludi Lin, Shin Han, Max Hong, Joe Talisman as Sub-Zero, and Hiroyuki Sanada as Scorpion, Tadanobu Asano as Raiden. Just a lot of really great and talented people on this film. And it's really cool to see such a diverse cast, too. That's really cool. And obviously, of course, a lot has been writing on, video game movies have definitely been doing a lot better in terms of actually not only staying true to their source material, but also being good movies in and of themselves. So, does Mortal Kombat continue that trend? Well, it depends on the person, because this movie, of course, has gotten a little bit of a mixed reception from people. Some really enjoyed it, some thought it was other dog crap. Me personally, I had a really fun time with it. I can't really lie. Can't say the fact that I didn't have fun. But before I go talking about the praise that I have for Mortal Kombat, which I'll get into in a bit, I feel like the fact that it's only fair because I love Mortal Kombat so much that, and I've been mostly positive, that I talk about some of the criticisms that I did have with the movie. One is, well, even though it's Mortal Kombat, they build up the big tournament and the fact that, you know, Outworld has currently won 9 tournaments, and if they win this one tournament, then everything will be lost. And so, of course, Raiden is trying to assemble all these groups of fighters together, from Sonya to Kano to Kung Lao to Liu Kang, and even a new character, Cole Young, which we'll get into Cole Young in a bit, to try and stop Shang Tsung and the Mortal Kombat tournament. My only problem with that premise is that we don't actually see the tournament. Now, I did see an interview that Greg Russo did in which he envisioned this as the first of a trilogy of movies. This would be the movie that would be set before the tournament, the second movie would be the tournament itself, and then the third film would be after the tournament. But why not just do the tournament? Like, why not just do why not just do the tournament? Like, that just really perplexes me and puzzles me. Another problem that I had with this movie was that, where the heck is Johnny Cage at? Like, you have almost all the major characters from the first Mortal Kombat. You got Liu Kang, Sonya, Scorpion, Sub-Zero, Kano. You even got Reptile, who was a hidden character in the first Mortal Kombat movie. You got Shang Tsung. You got Goro. Why on earth can you include Johnny Cage? Like, I know the fact that they're setting him up for the sequel, but come on. Why didn't you have Johnny Cage? And so, yeah, that's definitely something that I'm not particularly happy about, is that I really wish that we got to see Johnny Cage in the first Mortal Kombat movie, because this is the first Mortal Kombat movie, the first major live-action Mortal Kombat movie that we've gotten in 24 years, and Johnny Cage isn't in it. That kind of peeves me a little bit. Not to mention the fact that, while I do understand the fact that some of the actors, they're definitely trying their best, it did feel like that some of them weren't nearly as great as the others, but that's typical of a big film like this with a lot of characters. Like, some actors are, of course, you know, they're not going to get as much attention, and they're not going to get as much time to shine as they could, because this is a big cast of characters that you got to focus on. But yeah. And then, of course, there's the inclusion of the new character, Cole Young, who's played by the great Louis Tan. He's a great actor and such, but while I just was kind of indifferent to Cole. Like, I didn't hate the character, but I didn't particularly love him either. For the role that he served in this, I thought he was fine. He was a fine character. And arguably the film script it's not the strongest script ever written. But I feel like that for something like Mortal Kombat, you don't really come for the script or the really well-written dialogue, whatever. You come here to see the fights, and you come here for the characters. And for the most part, it actually delivers on that, because the fights, starting with the praise, the fight sequences in this are absolutely fantastic. Like, I'm really glad the fact that they were able to get that R rating, because for the first time ever, we get to finally see the fatalities from the games appear in the movie, and it's awesome to see those fatalities. Like, when you see Kano about to attack Reptile, like, you see him actually rip out his heart. And then, of course, you know, you get Scorpion, you know, eventually, you know, he starts breathing out fire right out of his face. And then, of course, you know, you also have a couple of other characters doing other fatalities. Kung Lao's fatality was probably the most brutal and the most awesome fatality, because, oh man, I was not, I knew that this film was going to be gory, because, you know, it is Mortal Kombat, but I didn't think it would get that gory. Like, that and when Cole just completely eviscerated Goro, those were probably the two most brutal moments of the movie, to me. But not only that, but there are some great actors in here who do really great jobs with the roles that they're given. Like, Josh Lawson as Kano is obviously the standout. Like, he was hilarious. There were actually, like, he had a lot of really great and funny lines. And not only that, but of course, you know, the two most iconic characters of Mortal Kombat are Sub-Zero and Scorpion. And the actors that they chose for those characters are fantastic. Joe Talisman did a really good job as Sub-Zero, more specifically Bi-Han, the first Sub-Zero. This is going to be important later on, but yeah, there's a reason why I specified that it's the Bi-Han version of Sub-Zero. And not only this, but he was actually legitimately terrifying. Like, whenever Sub-Zero showed up, he was legit scary. And not only this, but for the little bit of Hiroyuki Sanada that we got of him as Scorpion, he was awesome. I really liked the moment in which he showed up towards the end of the movie, in which he's like, I've come from the bowels of hell just to kill you, or something like that. Like, the way he said it was really well done. But one minor criticism is that, another really cool thing was that in the opening scene of the movie, like the first 7-8 minutes of the movie, it flashes back to 1700 Japan, and you see how the ancient rivalry between Bi-Han and Scorpion essentially, how deep and how long this battle goes between these two characters. Even before they were Sub-Zero and Scorpion, their rivalry between the Lin Kuei and the Shirai Ryu, which is, Scorpion's clan, it runs deep. But yeah, the one thing that I'm very confused about is, in that scene, obviously, of course, Bi-Han, he is Chinese, and he speaks in Chinese. But when he goes to Scorpion's family to ask where is Hanzo Hasashi, he speaks in Japanese. He speaks in Japanese to them because they're Japanese. And then when he goes to meet up with Hanzo, he starts speaking in Chinese. And then Hanzo's like, I have no idea what a single word you're saying is. It's like, why don't you just talk to him in Japanese like you did with his family? And also, how on earth do you suddenly know English all of a sudden? Because after that opening scene, Sub-Zero only speaks in English. And I'm like, what is this? And then, of course, Scorpion, for pretty much all the movie, whenever he speaks, it's in Japanese. But when you see him eventually do the famous, "Get over here" line, which was really well done, it makes me wonder, wait, is that the only English phrase that you know? Or is it, because after that, he still only speaks Japanese throughout the rest of the movie. But yeah, that part just really confused me, made me go, huh? But yeah, the fights definitely were really great, and for the most part, the actors who portrayed their characters, they really did embody those characters really, really well. Even a character that I wasn't too well known about, like Kung Lao, I thought that the actor Max Huang actually did a pretty decent job with the character of Kung Lao. And I am a little bit peeved the fact that Liu Kang isn't the center focus of the movie as he normally is. Instead, it's Cole Young who's getting a little bit more of the focus. But the little bit of Ludi Lin's Liu Kang that we did get here, I did think the fact that he did a pretty alright job. But yeah, it definitely does seem like the fact that they did really want to set up a lot for the sequel, because if this does not get a sequel at some point, I'm going to be a little bit ticked, because they obviously set up a lot for the next movie. But yeah, for the most part, it was a pretty entertaining film. It's a Mortal Kombat movie, and you can't really fault it for being literally anything else. The gore was really fantastic, and the action sequences were great. It was so cool to see all the fatalities. Obviously, to me, the highlight of the movie was the ending fight between Sub-Zero and Scorpion. That was probably awesome. The actors, for the most part, do an alright job, aside from maybe a couple here, and maybe one or two there that were I don't know about that. The music by Benjamin Wallfish was really, really well done. And I really like how the fact that he actually included the Mortal Kombat theme, aka Techno Syndrome by the Immortals. I really like how he actually used the Mortal Kombat theme. Most other movies, they would just ignore the theme for the movie, or just come up with a completely new theme for it. But here, he actually brought the original Mortal Kombat theme, and albeit, yes, he did modernize it a little bit for the most part, it is still the original Mortal Kombat beat and the original Mortal Kombat theme, and it's really well done. Not to mention the fact that not every character gets their chance to shine. Melina, for the most part, is kind of stuck on the sidelines for a little bit, as she's one of the henchwomen working for Shang Tsung, and isn't really given much. And then when we get to see finally her Baraka face finally appear as she's about to devour Cole, then you just see Sonya just blast her through the stomach, and then that's the end of Melina. And I'm like, what the heck? And the thing is, you introduce Melina without introducing Katana first. Where's she? Where's Jade? Where's Johnny Cage? yeah, definitely. Moving on from that. But yeah, despite some of the big criticisms that I did have with this movie, I did have a good time with it. I did have a really fun time with the movie. Obviously, not everybody's going to feel the same way as I do, but as a Mortal Kombat fan, uh, it gave me exactly what I expected it to give me. It gave me a Mortal Kombat movie, and can't really fault it much else for that. Oh yeah, I completely forgot to mention about Jax too, and about how he's played by Mechad Brooks, the actor who plays Martian Manhunter and Supergirl. He's here. Um, really thought it was interesting about how they had Sub-Zero be the reason why he lost his arms that time, but it's cool, whatever. But yeah, so overall, I'm probably gonna give Mortal Kombat like a 6.5 or 7 out of 10. It's nothing awful. It's not great. It's in between. It's okay for me. Um, Definitely not the best video game movie by far, but it was an enjoyable movie. I will say this. But yeah, so that's my review of Mortal Kombat, and yeah, it's probably gonna be just about to wrap up the video because I really don't have much else to say. But hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you have seen the movie, let me know in the comment section down below what your honest thoughts on the movie are. Also, please be civil down below in the comments as well. No hate speech or anything like that. Just be civil in the comments. But yeah, so hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure to like this video and to subscribe, and make sure to hit the little notification bell to make sure the fact that you don't miss out on a single time I upload. And yeah, that about wraps it up. And yeah, not much else to say other than, well, stay gold.